Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Access Entertainment and Metalholic Magazine. With us today, Chris Robertson of Blackstone Cherry. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man, doing good. Watching my wife put together a Scooby-Doo Lego lighthouse that has almost 450 pieces for my son. So I got out of it for interview time.
Hey, it's got to be nice to be home, right?
I tell you what, man, it is, and I've built so many Lego houses since Christmas that I'm slightly professional at it now.
Hey, I loved Legos when I was young. He's your son's what, about 3 now?
Yeah, he's 3 years old now, man. I'll be honest with you, I was never much into Legos when I was a kid. I was more of a Hot Wheels guy. And he's big into monster trucks and stuff. But, man, he's into this Scooby-Doo phase. And the only Scooby-Doo toys he wants to play with are the Lego ones. So but it's cool, man. You know, he's creative and he's got a creative imagination. He likes putting stuff together, so that's awesome.
Fantastic. I don't know about you, but I'm having a little bit of a surreal day, man. We just memorialized Lemmy on Saturday. Now we lost David Bowie.
I know, man. I woke up to the news, and I had to go back and listen to one of my favorite David Bowie songs this morning. There was 2 I listened to. I listened to Fame, and then I listened to a newer one. It's not newer, but it was in the 90s, called I'm Afraid of Americans. I think he did with Trent Reznor. It was awesome.
Right.
But no, dude, it's crazy. You know, we never got to do a show with Bowie or anything. But as far as Lemmy, we did a tour in 2010, I believe it was. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was 2010 with Motorhead. And dude, it was one of the coolest things. You know, like Motorhead's one of those bands that I'd always heard of. And, you know, I'd heard Ace of Spades and Born to Raise Hell and hear those songs, but I'd never even thought about going to see them live or whatever. I just knew the band, and they were iconic, and one of the founding bands for metal and punk and rock and roll. And I went out and watched them that first night, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. This band, these dudes are in their 60s, and they're up here going at it like it's nobody's business. And when we found out the news about Lemmy, I texted all the guys, and I was like, well, we can always say we were cool enough that he wanted our band on tour with his. So.
Absolutely. It's just sort of weird that we're losing all of our heroes and our icons right now. So,
man, I tell you what, those dudes are people completely irreplaceable. When you look at Lemmy and Bowie, and I mean, those dudes are completely irreplaceable. And both of them to be taken by cancer, man, in such a short period from each other. It's really sad, man,
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some positive stuff. I want to talk about the new record, Kentucky, but if we can, I want to backtrack to last year for a moment. You had a huge 2015. You turned 30, signed to a new record label. You headlined at Download again, which is like your 6th appearance, I believe.
Yeah, man. Dude, 2015 was a big year for us, man. We put out our first live DVD, which was taken from a show that was recorded in 2014 in Birmingham. In UK. It was amazing, man. We had 39,000 people there that night. It was absolutely overwhelming. So we put out our first DVD. We parted ways with Roadrunner and kind of joined forces with Mascot, which is awesome. We're super excited to be there. And then I turned 30, it's a big number for me. I'm sitting here looking at it going, 30 years old, man. And the band celebrated our 14th anniversary last year, so it's been a big year, man, and 2016 is shaping up to be even better.
As you mentioned, you guys released Thank You Living Live in Birmingham. When I first saw it, I thought it was Birmingham, Alabama, I figured, but you guys are
Oh yeah, man.
You guys are huge over there in the UK and Europe. I mean, you're headlining the big stage there at Download. You're headlining, your next tour coming up here with Shinedown and Hailstorm. 3 headliners on the same tour. That's got to be phenomenal.
It's amazing, man. When you look at that package, I mean, most of those bands are headliners, wherever they go. And we're just fortunate enough, man, that, Shinedown they'll always have a place in our heart, man. And so will the Hailstorm, that whole crew. They kind of started around the same time we did. And both those bands have been more successful than us, in the U.S., but we've just been very fortunate, man, that UK audience and the European audience has just really taken hold of us. And now we finally get to give back to those bands, that have taken us out so many times. And with Indigo, we kind of put this tour package together for Carnival of Madness, and it's going to be a new band called Highly Suspect, which I really like a lot of their stuff. And then obviously Hailstorm, who speak for themselves, and Shinedown the same way, just amazing catalogs. And it's going to be awesome to get to take them out and kind of say thank you in a way other than saying thank you for all the help they've given us over the years.
So this year you guys are celebrating your 15th anniversary as a band, the new album Kentucky. You guys went back into the studio where you recorded the debut album for this one, right?
Yeah, well, man, the studio's at a different building now, but it's all the same equipment, some new microphones and a few new mic pre's, but it's the same engineer and all the same equipment. But what's cool about it is the location he's at now is actually the location where he had his first studio that wasn't a mobile studio. It was an old music store called Backstage Music. And it's actually where a lot of us got our first guitars. We got our first basses or guitars there, and we'd get our guitar strings and stuff there. And the gentleman who ran the store passed away a few years back, and his wife and kids kept it open for a little while, but they decided to close it down. They had other interests. And when they did, David actually, they contacted him to see if he would want to move his studio back in there because he was looking for a new place. And it just kind of worked out, man, to be something really beautiful, to be able to go back to the place he started and the equipment we started on with the engineer, and to go where we bought our first guitars and stuff to make this record kind of 10 years after we put out our first record. And it was a truly freeing and beautiful experience to be able to go do that and do it on our own this time, to self-produce it and to not have anybody looking over your shoulder going, well, they hired me to produce and I'm not sure about that part or whatever. It's just the band playing their songs the way we intended them to be heard.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, thank you for mentioning that. You guys decided after a different producer on every album, you chose to self-produce. Plus you had that sort of familiarity and nostalgia that had to have a real impact on the flavor of the record.
Well, man, dude, if you look at it, we've worked with some of the greatest producers in rock and roll. We worked with, the first record was produced by John Fred's dad from the Kentucky Headhunters. And hell, they won a Grammy on a self-produced album, so he knows what he's doing. And the Headhunters are a great band. Him and David produced that first record, the engineer at the studio. And then the second record we did with Bob Marlette, who's worked with everyone from Black Sabbath to Seether to you name it, and Bob's probably worked with them. To the third record we did, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, we recorded with Howard Benson, who's everybody knows that name in the rock world,
Yeah, absolutely.
If you've had a song on radio in the rock market in the last 10 years, chances are you know who Howard Benson is. And then the fourth record, Magic Mountain, we did with a guy named Joe Barisi, who, engineers and mixes a lot of stuff, and he does a lot of the Chevelle records and some Tool, and he did a lot of stuff on the Tool 10,000 Days record, and he's done Soundgarden's King Animal. So they've all got these amazing track records, and we just took everything we learned from them and thought, we've learned a lot of valuable information, and if anybody knows what our fans are going to want, it's going to be us, And we just decided, man, we've been doing this now for 15 years. We've been putting albums out for the last 10. We felt pretty confident in the fact that we could produce a record that, we would all feel strongly about and be extremely proud of, and that's what we did.
I saw an interview you guys did where you were sort of saying that the new album is a mix of new songs that you recently wrote, but you sort of went back and looked at some older stuff and redid it a little bit and finally got it where you wanted it.
Yeah, man, there's actually the first single off the record that's coming out in a week or so is a song called In Our Dreams. And we wrote that song originally for the third album, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, with our buddy Bob Marlette out at his place in California. And, we had, when we wrote it, we just kind of, just threw a quick demo together on a computer. And the song had always kind of sat there. The label really didn't like the song or whatever when we were at Roadrunner, and we were like, well, you guys are crazy. But it ended up working out, man, because we got to use that song now, and that song ended up being, we think it's going to be a big song, and it's a really strong song, and we're super excited to finally get that out.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear the whole album. Obviously, so far all we've heard is the lead-off track, The Way of the Future. That's got a heavy sort of Alice in Chains soaked in classic Blackstone Cherry vibe. Tell us about that one from your perspective. Man,
that song, it came together while we were in Europe. Ben had that intro guitar riff with the fuzz and the octave and everything on it. So I kind of got out the computer and we turned on turn it on, hooked up to Logic, and just sat there on the bus and kind of put all this music down, and then the lyrics just kind of started happening, man. Looking at the state of the world right now, with the political correctness that has to be in the world, and all the debates that are going on, and everything that's just wrong with the world. That song's kind of like a call to rise, just to get back to living for the greater good of you and your neighbor. You know what I mean? Like, where did we go wrong to the fact of everybody has to be against everybody, and everybody has to be in a social class, or everybody has to be described by their ethnicity, or it's ridiculous, man. When did people become labels instead of being people? Everybody's the same. When we die, and your body decomposes, your bones laying there, and I don't understand how everyone has to be labeled now, and you have to be defined by your religion, or you have to be defined by how much money you make, or the color of your skin. And man, I mean, dude, I'm a white guy from the South, and I own guns, so automatically I am stereotyped into being a redneck and a right-wing extremist and all this stuff, when I'm not. I'm just a dude, man, who enjoys, target shooting, and I hunt on occasion to eat. If I kill anything, I eat it. And I just, man, it's a way of life where I'm from. You know what I mean? A lot of people own guns, and so I don't really get into the gun debate other than, don't try to keep me from being able to purchase one if I'd want. But man, I mean, the system is completely flawed right now. Politicians, are a whole other bag of tricks, and they might as well have price tags on their foreheads, in my opinion, because it's all about who can put the most money towards their agenda. When you hear a politician speak, and then you hear them speak 4 years later, and they have a completely opposing view to what they said 4 years ago, somebody's gotten to them, and it's all about agendas, man. It's not about the greater good of the American people and just humanity and the planet in general anymore. It's all about pushing an agenda, and it's all about money at the end of the day. It's ridiculous, really. I mean, this country was founded on freedoms, and, it's getting to the point where you can't express your beliefs or your freedoms without someone being offended or someone, wanting to kill somebody over it. And it's just ridiculous, man. I don't know.
It's become very divisive, and our government's all about sleight of hand. And the funny thing is they put us at extreme ends, no matter who we are, but really most of us in America and around the world, we're somewhere in the middle with just about everything that matters. So
that's the way I have, man. Like, let people be able to, as long as they haven't been checked. Dude, here's the thing. When you take a concealed carry deadly weapons permit, the questions on there: have you ever been convicted of a felony? No. Have you ever been convicted of domestic violence? Or have you, are you a legal citizen? Have you ever been institutionalized for mental health? Those are all valid questions that if you answer yes to, you shouldn't own a gun. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't be able to pack a gun. Like, for me, it's as long as someone can pass a background check, let them have a gun, legalize marijuana across the states. Because look at the tax revenue that states like Colorado and Washington and even Illinois are going to hit, in the next year or so off of medical marijuana sales.
Oh, yeah.
You want to start erasing the national deficit, stop locking people up for a plant. Dude, I don't even smoke, but stop locking people up for a plant when you could be making money off of it. It makes common sense to me.
Oh, it's funny. I work in a prison that deals with drug rehab programs, and I'm like, how can we have a plant, like you say, that's illegal, it's criminalized, when hundreds of thousands of people a year die from smoking and drinking, and they're legal, and yet this is illegal, and nobody has ever died directly from just taking it. It's stupid.
Exactly. I don't understand that. Dude, it's amazing. Around here where we live, I remember several years ago, a guy went to prison for cultivating marijuana, and they had, just a year or so later, there was a huge methamphetamine bust, and that guy, I guess he turned some other people in, and he got a year in probation. I'm like, how does that work? How does that make sense? This guy had 10 marijuana plants, and this guy, is manufacturing methamphetamines in a house, that probably has children in it, yet he gets a slap on the wrist pretty much. It's absurd to me, honestly, man. But, I mean, like I said, the system is broken, and it's going to take the people to fix it. I mean, It's not going to be fixed by a Democrat or a Republican. It's going to take people to fix it.
Absolutely. You just hit the main point there. We have to take back our country and start thinking again and doing our own research and talking to each other again. But otherwise, we're going to end up having another civil war, and that, unfortunately, would be tragic, but it might be what ultimately gets this country to wake up. I hope not.
No, dude, and I don't want that either. But, dude, you look at it and you go, the media is constantly trying to cause a civil war. It's a constant thing, man. Every time you turn on the news, they're pitting people against each other, whether it's Christians versus Muslims or it's African Americans versus Caucasian people. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I mean, damn, dude, what if the news would just show something about a soldier coming home to meet his daughter, you know, that hasn't seen him in 6 months, instead of having to post it? You know, it blows my mind. The news is like the most negative thing on the planet, man. That's why I just stopped watching.
You guys have always made bold picks with your cover songs. You guys chose Edwin Starr, War, fitting enough considering our conversation a moment ago. How did you guys pick that one?
Man, you know, we were sitting there in the studio, and we knew we were going to do a couple covers for the B-sides of the record. And we're listening to stuff, and, like, we were listening to Signed, Sealed, Delivered by Stevie Wonder. And we were listening to all this stuff, man. And we're all big Motown fans. So I was just going down the list of Motown's #1 album. We had it plugged in the speakers at the studio. And I clicked next, and you hear dun, 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 dun. And we were like, oh, my God, this is a song. Because when you look at the state of, and it's not even really about, you know, fighting terrorism or fighting whatever wars are going on. It's about what could happen to this country, man. For my thinking, anyways, it's, you know, what's going to happen to this country if something doesn't give and people don't start coming together instead of fighting each other? You know, my favorite line in that song is, ain't nothing but a heartbreaker, got one friend, that's the Undertaker. Because it's the truth. I mean, I don't understand it. You know, I have the highest amount of respect for the men and women who serve in all branches of the armed forces for the United States. Man, I've been reading the American Sniper book. I've seen the movie several times, and I've just been reading the books. And people like Chris Kyle and Mr. Luttrell, who were SEALs and, you know, have incredible stories. I have the highest amount of respect for those people because they go put their life on the line for the basic freedoms that people are trying to take away from us, you know, which it blows my mind, man, you know. But I have the highest amount of respect for those dudes. But I don't ever want a war on American soil between American people. You know what I mean? Like, I understand war, you know, is going to happen regardless of how, just regardless, period. It's going to happen. There's no way around wars being fought. But the last thing I think anybody wants, especially the American people, is a war between the American people. You know, this country's been through it once. We don't want to do it again. And for me, that was kind of like why that song seemed to fit. But, dude, the song came out so awesome. We had some friends sing on it and some buddies of ours that have a band called Fat Box. They came out and did the horns on it, and it came out so good. It seemed to fit so well for the state of the world, even that we just had to put it on the record. Man, it was recorded as a B-side, but it ended up making the record.
Well, I can't wait to hear that. I can't wait to hear the whole album. April 1st is when it comes out. Kentucky. Chris Robertson of Blackstone Cherry, thank you so much for taking some time. Enjoy Carnival of Madness, and we look forward to you coming back stateside and touring here as well.
Thank you so much for the time, man. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Take care, brother.